Every neural network has a lineage. Every algorithm has a ghost. We are the digital archaeologists, digging through the dust to find the code that built our world. Step beyond the artifact. This is the synthetic horizon. Welcome back to the synthetic horizon. Every institution has a shelf life. For over a century, the American classroom has been a machine of preservation. We've operated on the industrial model, standardized testing, rote memorization, and the belief that a human mind is a vessel to be filled with static data. We taught the same formulas, the same historical dates, and the same structural rules of grammar. We believed that by mastering these artifacts, a student was prepared for the world. But in 2026, the vessel has a hole in it. The data is no longer in the textbooks. It is in the latent space of the models every student carries in their pocket. We are witnessing the hollowing out of traditional pedagogy. We aren't just changing how we teach, we are changing the definition of intelligence. Welcome to Phase 3 of our investigation, the synthetic classroom. To understand the crisis in our schools, you have to look at the paper ghost. For decades, the 5-paragraph essay was the gold standard of student assessment. It was how we measured critical thinking, structure, and voice. But in the span of 36 months, the essay has become a haunted artifact. We are currently locked in a plagiarism arms race that no one is winning. On one side, we have students using large language models to hallucinate their homework in seconds. On the other, we have teachers using AI detection software that is notoriously unreliable, flagging original human thought as synthetic, and missing the most sophisticated prompts entirely. The paper ghost isn't just about cheating, it's about the collapse of the feedback loop. When a student prompts a machine to write, and a teacher uses a machine to grade, the human element, the actual transfer of knowledge, has left the room. We are left with a ghost-to-ghost interaction, a synthetic output, being verified by a synthetic judge. In 2026, the B+ essay is no longer a sign of a developing mind. It is simply proof that the student knows how to command the horizon of the prompt. In 1984, educational psychologist Benjamin Bloom identified what he called the 2 sigma problem. He discovered that students who received one-on-one tutoring performed 2 standard deviations better than those in a traditional classroom. For 40 years, this was the holy grail of education, a goal that was economically impossible to scale. You simply couldn't provide a private tutor for every child in a public school system. Until now. We are entering the era of the one-to-one synthetic mentor. In 2026, the $1 trillion tutor isn't a person, it's an agent. These AI models are patient, they are infinitely knowledgeable. They don't get tired of explaining the Pythagorean theorem for the 10th time, and they don't have implicit biases based on a student's zip code or behavior. On the surface, this is the ultimate democratization of excellence. But there is a shadow attached to this light. When every student has a cognitive crutch that is perfectly tuned to their weaknesses, do they ever learn to build their own strength? We are witnessing the automation of effort. If the machine anticipates your confusion before you even feel it, the struggle, that vital friction where actual learning occurs, is smoothed away. We are creating a generation of high-functioning dependents. Students who can solve complex problems, as long as the agent is whispering the next step in their ear. This forces a radical reassessment of the human teacher. For a century, the teacher was the sage on the stage, the primary source of information. In the synthetic classroom, that role is obsolete. The machine is the source. The human must become the architect of environment. The teacher's value is migrating away from content delivery and toward behavioral synthesis. We are asking educators to become prompt engineers for human souls. If the machine knows every date in history, every formula in physics, and every rule of syntax, what is the artifact we are actually trying to preserve in the curriculum? We are currently teaching a 19th century curriculum to 21st century students using 20th century tools. The curriculum void is the gap between what we test and what actually matters. In the era of the ghost in the machine, the ability to recall is a dead skill. The ability to curate is the new literacy. History is no longer about memorizing the year the Bastille fell. It's about analyzing the data biases in the AI's reconstruction of that event. Math is no longer about the long division. It's about understanding the logic of the algorithm that performs the calculation. We are moving from knowing the answer to framing the question. But our school systems are still built on the answer. We are testing students on their ability to act like slow, inefficient computers, while the computers are becoming increasingly human. This is the curation inflection point. In 2026, a student doesn't need to be a writer in the traditional sense. They need to be an editor. They need to be able to look at a synthetic output and find the hallucination, the bias, and the hollow logic. We are shifting from primary creation to secondary refinement. But our schools don't have a grade for refinement. We are still looking for the original artifact. We are searching for the human fingerprint in a world where the machine can mimic the fingerprint perfectly. We are left staring into a void where the old rules of work and achievement have simply evaporated. In the late 1990s, we talked about the digital divide, the gap between those who had internet access and those who didn't. In 2026, that divide has evolved into something far more dangerous. We are witnessing the birth of the synthetic divide. This isn't just about having a laptop, it's about compute literacy. On one side of the divide, we have AI-accelerated schools. These are institutions that have integrated synthetic agents into every level of the curriculum. Students here are learning to be architects of logic. They are gaining the human-machine synergy that will be the minimum requirement for the 2030 workforce. On the other side, we have the AI-restricted schools. Fearing plagiarism and the hollowing out of the brain, these institutions have banned the technology. They are forcing students to work in a data vacuum. They are testing 1960s skills in a 2060s world. We are effectively creating a two-tier society, a class of AI commanders and a class of AI consumers. One group learns to control the machine, the other learns only to be managed by it. Even more chilling is the rise of surveillance pedagogy. In low-resource schools, AI isn't being used to tutor, it's being used to monitor. We are seeing the deployment of attention-tracking algorithms and behavioral predictors. In these environments, the synthetic classroom feels more like a synthetic panopticon. The machine isn't there to help you think. It's there to ensure you are compliant. This is the great irony of the 2026 inflection point. For the wealthy, AI is a tool for liberation. For the vulnerable, it is a tool for discipline. The digital archaeology of this period will show a civilization that used its greatest intelligence to widen the gates of inequality. If the machine can calculate, curate, and communicate with perfect efficiency, what is left for the human? This is the search for the human premium. As the cost of intelligence drops to zero, the value of being skyrockets. We are entering the era of post-information education. In this world, the most valuable skills are the ones that cannot be flattened into a dataset. Empathy, ethical nuance, emotional resilience, the ability to hold a hand, to look a student in the eye, and to recognize the spark of curiosity that a machine can only simulate. The teacher of 2026 is no longer a knowledge provider. They are a mentor of being. Their job is to protect the human core from the synthetic hollowing. They are the guardians of the uncopyable. Curiosity is not a prompt. Resilience is not an algorithm. These are the artifacts of the soul that we must fight to preserve in the synthetic classroom. Perhaps this is the hidden gift of the synthetic shift. By automating the drill and kill of rote learning, the machine has inadvertently freed the classroom to return to its original purpose: wonder. When the labor of doing is handled by the model, the student is left with the luxury of thinking. We have an opportunity to move away from education as compliance and toward education as exploration. But this requires a radical act of courage from the institution. It requires us to admit that the old artifacts, the tests, the grades, the standardized rubrics, are dead. We must be willing to let the paper ghost vanish so the human student can finally appear. We began this investigation by looking at the hollowing out of the classroom. We saw the death of the essay, the rise of the synthetic tutor, and the widening of the data divide. But as digital archaeologists, we know that every collapse is followed by a new architecture. The synthetic classroom is not the end of learning, it is the end of industrial learning. The screen is shifting. The artifacts of the 19th century are crumbling, but the horizon is still ours to command. Step beyond the artifact, protect the human premium, command the horizon. I'm your host, and this has been Phase 3 of our investigation. Subscribe to join the next era. We'll see you in the next frame.